Hillary Clinton has been offered as a cultural artifact of both redemption and of progress and of intelligence and a kind of almost the success of the entire project of democracy, that to not vote for Hillary Clinton would be foolish, would be stupid. This is a perfect storm. It's Hillary Clinton on legacy media being presented how they love to convey and portray her as a kind of example of elevated consciousness, of this is democracy working. But it's a role that Hillary Clinton simply cannot play. Why? Because Hillary Clinton's past is not a past with the occasional error. It's a very curious and extraordinary and pugnacious and bellicose past filled with war, hypocrisy and corruption. And this, in a sense, is one of the totems of their system that they're still trying to prop up. They had the opportunity to have a populist leader in the Democrat Party a little while ago in the figure of Bernie Sanders, and they said no way. Bernie Sanders was built, or the phenomena of Bernie Sanders was built on his declarative stance on financial corruption, in particular events in 2008 where Barack Obama had a choice to make, financial institutions and elite power. He went with elite power. Now, let's see how Hillary Clinton plays out in real time. You're going to love this MSNBC interview with her. It's a staggering piece of broadcasting in some ways, and there's a lot that can be learned when you see my old friend Micah offering therapy to Hillary and Hillary's inability to cope with what I would call, and what many people would call, simple banter.
And we're going to, I believe it or not, as we veer into politics right now, it's going to veer right back to softs because it's so related. But I'd like to call the part of this segment therapy with Hillary, if I may, because she's...
They're also pleased with themselves on Morning Joe when they get to have 6 screens, each with its own individual larvae in it, like larvae in a cell. Okay, so we got Hillary on. We're going to do a segment called Therapy with Hillary. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to a casino and worked out what the odds are of knowing a significant number of people who take their own lives, but I would like to know exactly what your foundation did in Haiti. Are these questions coming?
She's now going to become, she needs another role, therapist. I know a lot of people ask you this question, so I want to ask you, for our viewers, about not just abortion, which I'll get to in a moment, and women's rights.
We'll get to abortion and women's rights because we know you're well-versed and well-rehearsed on abortion and women's rights and how we should use this to implement all sorts of forms of control.
But about former President Donald Trump.
At best, let's get him, because that's the problem.
Who is in criminal court in New York City.
Criminal court, historic criminal court, and nothing else is happening in the world. There's nothing else happening in the world. There are not endless wars that you're funding, all of which it could be argued are unwinnable. There's not the possibility for a real and deep reckoning about how the business of politics globally is conducted. There's no conversation about bringing America together, ending the condemnation and division, and finding ways that people might experience new freedom simply through decentralization, people being able to run their own communities representatively, affording the possibility that was enshrined in your constitution of various different states undertaking different ways of being American, and people through consensus and liberty and freedom participate in systems of representation in new ways. These conversations you will not see. You will see the amplification of terror, the amplification of dread, the amplification of division. They have only one card to play, and that card is fear. Fear Donald Trump. You know what my position is. I believe the solution is going to come from within you and from places beyond what we're currently discussing within the limited paradigm of materialism, for want of a better phrase. But what you will not be offered in any conversation on MSNBC is legitimate conversation about the possibility for actual change, the ability, therefore, to resist the power of the lobbyist class, the donor class, the military-industrial complex, the pharmaceutical industry. The problem with independent media is you know the language now, and you know the problem. Even if from time to time all of us get caught up in oppositionism and cultural issues that we know that we should get beyond. because we're human and because we're flawed. What they want is you mired in stupidity, so fearful, disoriented, so full of bad food and bad pharma that you can't even think straight, so weary and exhausted from pointless, soul-crushing work that you can't even think your next thought clearly. Those kind of conversations won't be facilitated on MSNBC.
For this hush money thing. Meanwhile, the documents case is delayed. Meanwhile, Georgia, what's going on here? Everything seems to be delayed and moving down the road. And there are even those who argue that this Manhattan case it's not as big, it's not serious, and he might get off anyway or not. And how do people manage especially people who really love this democracy?
Really, really love this democracy. Really love it. Love it so much that they're willing to sell it to globalist elites.
Who take it seriously, who take the words that you just said on our show very seriously, that you can't just sit back and let democracy come to you, that this is every day something we all must work on together. What do you say to people when they ask you about the former president?
Can I be Micah for a moment? What do you say, Hillary, when people say that you used the Pied Piper strategy to intentionally cultivate extreme right-wing presidential candidates, hoping to turn them into the new mainstream of the Republican Party in order to try to increase your chance of winning? What do you say about that? Was that wise in retrospect? And also, using campaign funds to back opposition party opponents, doesn't that seem, in essence, wrong? And also, just the idea of elevating Trump and, as you describe them, other extremists, isn't that morally difficult? I mean, that's not the shattering the glass ceiling that you've told us is the image that you want us to believe in. And what about Bernie Sanders? What about that? I'll get to that.
These trials and these delays and the fear that they feel about the upcoming election.
Well, Mika, I'm happy to go to therapy with you anytime.
That's a joke from about 100 years ago at the beginning of the... You said therapy. Now, I'm happy to go to therapy with you because our entire system is collapsing and we're going to need some therapy.
Because clearly the pressure and the stress on our system, our country, our Constitution, our future is so intense for those of us who understand what's at stake.
And because I understand what's at stake. In order to facilitate these important conversations, we need the support of our partners. Here's a message from them now. Despite everything the Fed has been trying, we are still feeling the effects of inflation. Filling up your car, grocery shopping, home repairs, everything's more expensive. And most of you are paying these bills with a credit card, and credit card debt's at an all-time high. If you're a homeowner, there's a way out. You've got to call my friends at American Financing. They can put together a plan for you to pay off that high-interest credit card debt and create meaningful savings for you every month. They're saving people just like you an average of $854 a month, and they are closing them deals fast, sometimes as quickly as in 10 days. Don't wait. Get yourself into a better position. Call their salary-based mortgage consultants today. It costs nothing to get started. And if you do start today, you could delay 2 mortgage payments, giving you greater savings up front. American Financing can help get that monkey off your back. 866-574-2500. That's 866-574-2500. That's the phone number for you to call, or visit americanfinancing.net/Russell. americanfinancing.net/Russell. Do you know that Hillary Clinton personally approved her campaign's plans in the fall of 2016 to share information with a reporter about uncorroborated alleged server back channels between Donald Trump and a top Russian bank, commonly known as Russiagate? Clinton's campaign created and fueled a successful years-long campaign of media fraud using government connections and press to generate real criminal and counterintelligence investigations of political enemies. Those are not the kind of stories that should be attached to someone who's presenting themselves as the solution.
I don't mean that in a derogatory way to others, but
I don't mean to be derogatory about ordinary Americans. I did that before when I said that they were a basket of deplorables. No, I mean to say I like and understand and in fact am normal Americans, but though I'm cleverer than them.
If you've been in this world as you and I have, and you've studied it and you've watched it.
We've been in this world, you and I, and we've studied it. There it is. That's the world. There's the world there. We're studying the world.
It is a very difficult time right now.
One of the reasons it's so difficult, Hillary, is because of the endless wars. Wars that you supported. The war in Iraq, Clinton escalated wars, greenlit coups, and generally maintained and expanded US power around the globe. On most foreign policy decisions, including Libya, Clinton was in favor of aggressive action, but got away with hawkish policies by sticking to the language of humanitarian intervention and liberation. That's what it is within neoliberalism, that We talk about, black kids are going to get computers somehow just based on this thing that I'm saying. Meanwhile, housing deals that were designed to create affordable housing are created by lobbyists from the real estate industry. That wars are legitimized using the language of humanitarianism. The game is up. The jig is over. They can no longer claim to be the party of care and compassion while supporting endless war around the world. They know that. You know that, and they know that you know that. Now what's left? Censorship. And the legitimization of censorship. They know that you're too well informed, that you are keeping up and getting ahead. I know because I've been on the journey with you. I remember some years ago when there was a Facebook whistleblower story, and I was like, it's good that a Facebook whistleblower is going to bring down Facebook. And I remember when we made the content, it was you that said, no. What this is they found someone that will step forward so that they can say, hey, what we should do is we should be able to see everyone's addresses who belong to Facebook. We should be able to surveil and spy on Facebook users. But that was one of the learning curves for us when we realized that wrapped up in the language of care and concern is the politics of control and oppression, the politics of war. That's why, whatever you think of Tulsi Gabbard, she's an interesting figure because she has integrity. There'll be all sorts of issues you don't agree with Tulsi Gabbard on. Of course there will. That's the way it goes. But the simple fact is, we better start looking for new alliances and new ways of moving forward and new ways of overcoming our own tendency to bigotry or prejudice or whatever biases we might have that are preventing us from participating in a movement that is immediately required, and a movement that doesn't have as its figurehead the tangerine terror that is Trump, but the rational, logical, feminist in this instance, or so she declares, Hillary Clinton.
Justice delayed is justice denied. And the people in our country, it looks as though, will most likely go to vote without knowing the outcome of these other very serious trials. And the one that is going on now currently in New York is really about election interference. It is about trying to prevent the people of our country from having relevant information.
Here's some relevant information for you. Clinton was an enthusiastic supporter of Obama's decision to step up the use of drone warfare in Pakistan, Yemen and Somalia. During one 5-month period of the operation, nearly 90% of people killed in airstrikes were not the intended targets. What about business with the Clinton Foundation, though? How did the Clinton Foundation become so successful, so valuable and so effective? As Secretary of State, Clinton secured defense contracts for companies such as Lockheed Martin, brokered deals to build nuclear plants for Westinghouse. American military contractors who donated to the Clinton Foundation were awarded some $163 billion of arms deals authorized by the Clinton State Department. You tell me, what do you think's having a more significant impact on the state of the world? $163 billion worth of arms deals authorized by Clinton State Department, or Donald Trump giving some hush money that was meant to be spent on a campaign to Stormy Daniels? Remember, I'm not suggesting that anyone other than you should be free. I'm not telling you who you should vote for or not vote for. That's none of my business. It's none of my nation. The last thing you need is someone with this accent telling you what to do in that country. But what I can tell you with some clarity, just by reading these numbers, and believe me, there are other lists connected to Hillary Clinton that are cause for concern, is that this is not the solution. This is, in fact, a more serious problem. That's what we've been discussing for a while. The real terror, the real problem, the real tyranny is not a rebooted, celebritified version of military despotism as experienced in the 20th century, the strongman leader. No, it is the kind of insidious and insipid bureaucratic tyranny explored by Huxley, illustrated by Orwell, alluded to by Kafka. You won't really know where the power is. Everyone's so boring and so tedious and so dull and so trite and so forgettable and so ignorable, and somehow, like parasites, they seep into your life, and through organizations like the WHO they can control your country, and through organizations like NATO they can march your children to war, and through organizations like the FDA they can ensure that bad drugs make it to the marketplace, and through big food they will ensure that you are poisoned, and through constant materialism and commodification and reductivism they'll make sure that it's impossible impossible for you to realize that there is something more to your life. There is something more to your spirit. There is something more to your soul, and they will never, ever let you see it because you'll be caught in fear and rage and desire. And how do I know? Because I've been there, and on a bad day, I'm there still. But together, I believe that we can transcend it. I believe it's possible through open-heartedness, through willingness, through a willingness to transform and change ourselves and be kind to one another to change the world. And my only worry now is that speech is possibly out of Rocky IV. Is that from Rocky? Was that Rocky IV that said that first of all? It was either Rocky IV or Hillary Rodham. Help me through your foundation, Clinton. Please, can I have an arms deal now?
That may have influenced how they could have voted in 2016 or whether they would have voted. I think that the defendant, the former president, knew exactly what he was doing when he went to such great lengths to try to squash, bury, kill stories, pay off people, because he understood the electoral significance of them. So I think that this is not, though, about the past, because the other cases are about election interference. And he's practically promised us, if you listen to him at his rallies, you read his interview with Time magazine, that if he doesn't like the way the election turns out, he's going to do something again to try to prevent the lawful winner from taking office. I mean,
a lawful winner from taking office. Because, of course, when Trump won, we were all about, well done. Let's just make this work. We didn't go into a whooping hysteria about Russiagate that I started.
I was Secretary of State traveling around the world on behalf of our country, trying to persuade leaders to believe in democracy, to believe in the peaceful transfer of power, to accept election results after appropriate challenges were made. And, you know, Trump had all the time in the world to make those challenges, and he was shut down by courts. He was denied by Republican as well as Democratic election officials because there was no evidence. This is all about power, how to get it, how to keep it, how not to give it up.
Oh my God, she's actually describing it. You only need to do a cursory glance of the actions of the Clinton Foundation in Haiti to know how they run their operations. You only need to look at the funding they've received and their relationship with George Soros to know that there are deep investigations that are available to you. You only need to reflect for a moment on the true origins of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, or at least the recent incarnation of it, and the maiden coup in 2014 and the CIA bases in Ukraine, to recognize that the real power to fear is military industrial complex power enacted in order only to maintain an ongoing economy of war that benefits the very interest that Hillary Clinton truly represents, while claiming that this is all for plucky little girls growing up dreaming of being president one day. What an astonishing gambit. What astonishing rhetoric to deploy. What an incredible figure. I wonder what's going on, man. If this is what we know, if this is what we can piece together by just using information available to us now, I wonder if there is a deeper truth that's even more nefarious.
That is so opposite of everything we believe or should believe in our country about how we are a nation of laws.
Look at like sort of Micah and Morning Joe just smile. Micah just like, this is right. And Morning Joe like, what's the name of the show again? Morning Joe. Then why the am I not awake?
Not of men. And they are men who try to put themselves above the law, try to hang on to power. The other point I would quickly make is that the Supreme Court is doing our country a grave disservice in not deciding the case about immunity. I read the excellent decision by the Court of Appeals, and the judges there, I think, covered every possible argument.
Again, they are masters on legacy media and in the ordinary political paradigm of ensuring that your attention is maintained in a state of irrelevance on issues of irrelevance. Isn't it more rewarding to learn that a CIA carve-out funded the PhD of Larry Page and Sergey Brin. Isn't it interesting to know that CIA spy satellite technology was utilized in order to give Google the head start when it came to Google Maps? Isn't it becoming clear now that there is an ulterior power being directed by these interests, and all the while we, through organizations like MSNBC, and you'd have to say Fox News, the legacy media, regard the forthcoming election as a kind of sports competition, as my team versus your team. But a far more significant conflict is, what are the sets of interests that are able to avoid, negate, and obfuscate whatever the outcome of that election is? When Hillary Clinton says no matter the outcome of the election, Donald Trump will claim victory, the same is true in reverse. This is extraordinary. This is an extraordinary set of claims. And I would say that the greater fear is now clear. It is a kind of technological dictatorship, not a militaristic, celebritified version, 2024 style. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments and the chat. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.